I'm Hilda. It was a Thanksgiving dinner that I'll never forget. The dining room was filled with the rich aroma of roasted turkey and the soft chatter of my extended family. I sat at the far end of the table, a simple black dress making me blend in, just as I'd planned. My mother stood up, tapping her wine glass to get everyone's attention. With a proud smile, she began, "We are so blessed. My daughter Isabella married a brilliant neurosurgeon, Dr. Ethan Carter, who saves lives every day. Ethan just made partner at one of the most prestigious medical practices in the city." The room erupted in applause, and Isabella blushed with pride. Then, my mother's gaze shifted to me. Her voice took on that familiar apologetic tone. "And, of course, we're proud of both our daughters. One married a surgeon, and the other, well, Hilda cleans floors for the city." The room fell silent. I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall and the soft rustling of the tablecloth. My father, a gruff and no-nonsense man, pulled out a $50 bill from his wallet and slid it across the white linen tablecloth. It stopped in front of my plate. He looked me straight in the eye and said, "Here, go clean something." A few nervous laughs echoed around the table. I looked at the bill, then at my father. Without a word, I folded it neatly and slipped it into my pocket. "Thank you, Dad," I said calmly. Inside, I was seething, but I refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing me react. Just then, my 80-year-old grandmother, Martha, slowly stood up. She had always been a strong-willed woman, a social worker who had dedicated her life to helping others. "Caroline," she said, looking at my mother, "tell them where your daughter actually works." My mother's face went blank. I just did. "She works in cleaning for the city." Grandma Martha's voice was steady and cold. "Hilda is the executive director of the city's Environmental Health and Sanitation Department. With a budget of $55.8 million and a staff of 200 employees. The room was in shock. Uncle Leo, who had been quietly sipping his wine, spoke first. "Like a manager?" Grandma Martha replied, "Like the person who runs the whole department. Her work ensures clean water, proper waste management, and disease prevention for our entire city." My mother stammered, "She would have told us if." Grandma Martha interrupted, "When has anyone in this family ever asked?" She reached into her purse and pulled out a newspaper clipping. It was a photo of me shaking hands with the mayor at a ceremony where I'd received an award for my work during a health crisis. As the clipping passed from hand to hand, I watched the expressions on my family's faces change. Confusion, surprise, and then, something like respect. Just then, my phone in my purse started buzzing. I pulled it out to see multiple missed calls and urgent texts from my department. And as I held it, it started ringing again. The caller ID read, "Mayor's Office." My father stared, "On Thanksgiving?" I stood up. "Excuse me, I need to take this." I walked to the hallway but left the door open so they could all hear. "Director Hilda speaking," I said, my voice shifting to a professional and authoritative tone. The mayor's assistant quickly briefed me on a water contamination issue in a local school. "Contact the Environmental Protection Agency immediately. Activate Level 2 response protocol. Deploy testing units to the affected areas, focusing on schools and nursing homes first. I need a preliminary report by 6 a.m. Tomorrow. Yes, I'll be in the office by 5:30. This is a priority." I hung up and returned to the table. Everyone was looking at me differently now. Isabella whispered, "Jesus, Hilda." Grandma Martha leaned forward. "Hilda, tell them about the hospital contracts." I took a deep breath and said calmly, "My department manages sanitation and public health coordination agreements with every major hospital in the city, including the one where Ethan works. We handle medical waste disposal, infectious material handling, and conduct quarterly inspections of all operating rooms." Ethan's face went pale. "What does that involve?" I explained, "We ensure that your surgical suites stay sterile. Without our work, you wouldn't be able to operate safely. That's how public health infrastructure works. One of my teenage cousins asked, "How much do you make?" My mother gasped, "That's rude." But Grandma Martha answered, "6 figures. Last I checked, Hilda's salary was $120,000. My mother dropped her fork. Grandma Martha continued, "During the last health crisis, Hilda's department coordinated the distribution of protective equipment to 50 homeless shelters and implemented emergency hygiene measures for field hospitals." Isabella looked at me with tears in her eyes. I had no idea. I looked at her. "You should have asked. For years, you watched them humiliate me at every family gathering, and you said nothing." My mother started crying. "Hilda, I'm so sorry. I didn't know." I looked at her. "You didn't want to know. I told you I worked in public health, but you heard cleaning and stopped listening." My father asked quietly, "What do you want from us?" I thought for a moment. "I want you to understand that respect isn't optional. If you want me in your life, I won't come to events where I'm treated as less than. I won't listen to comparisons between me and Isabella. I won't accept dismissive comments about my work." My mother pleaded, "Please don't go. We can fix this." I shook my head. "This isn't one mistake. It's years of you deciding I wasn't good enough because I didn't marry a doctor and I chose a career you didn't understand." I turned to Grandma Martha. "Grandma, you coming?" She stood up, reaching for her walker. "I'm with you, Hilda." As we walked out the door, I heard my mother sobbing inside. In the car, Grandma Martha asked, "How do you feel?" I sat there for a long time, processing everything. "Free," I finally said. "To understand how I got to this point, I need to go back in time." My mother, Caroline, was 18 when she had Isabella. It was a hasty marriage after an unexpected pregnancy. She dropped out of college and spent the next few decades dreaming of a better life for her daughters. I was born 3 years later. We lived in a small house in a working-class neighborhood. My father, Robert, worked long hours as a mechanic at a local garage. My mother stayed at home, always comparing me to Isabella. Isabella was the beautiful one, with long, golden hair and bright blue eyes. She took dance lessons and was always the center of attention. I, on the other hand, was more interested in science. I would spend hours in my room, reading books about the environment and public health. When Isabella was 12, my mother started teaching her how to be a proper lady. How to sit, how to talk at dinner parties, and how to attract a wealthy husband. When I was 12, my mother would ask me why I couldn't be more like Isabella. I remember sitting at the top of the stairs one day, listening to my mother on the phone. "Isabella is going to be a success. Hilda, well, we'll see." Those words hurt, and I went to my room and didn't come out for dinner. In high school, Isabella's straight A's earned her praise and rewards. My A in biology earned me a lecture about why I couldn't get an A. When I won second place in a regional science fair for a project on air pollution, my parents didn't even attend the ceremony. They were busy helping Isabella with her college applications. Isabella got into a prestigious medical school, and my mother was over the moon. When I told them I was applying to a local university for a degree in public health, my mother's face fell. "Public health? What will you do with that? Can't you apply to a better school?" I didn't argue. I knew my mother didn't really want to hear my plans. She just wanted Isabella's life for me. But there was one person who saw my potential, Grandma Martha. She had worked as a social worker for most of her life, and she understood the importance of public health. A few weeks before I started university, I went to visit her. Her small apartment was filled with books about social justice and maps of the city's neighborhoods. She made me a cup of tea and sat me down at the kitchen table. "Your mother thinks success is a big house and a rich husband," she said. "I've learned that success is about making a difference in people's lives. Which one do you want to be?" I looked at the maps on the table, at the areas with high pollution and poor sanitation. The second one, I said. Grandma Martha smiled. Good. Because if you're brave enough, I'll show you what that means. She pulled out a map with red markings on it. These are the areas where the public health system is failing. These are the people your mother would rather ignore. If you choose this path, she may never understand. Can you live with that? I thought about all the times my mother had dismissed my interests. I can live with it, I said. I started at the university that fall. I declared my major in public health and got a part-time job cleaning the university's laboratories. My mother was horrified when she found out. You're cleaning labs? Hilda, that's so demeaning. Can't you get an internship at a hospital? I told her it was a respectable job, but she didn't listen. But I kept going. I noticed things in the labs, patterns of mold growth, problems with the ventilation systems. I started taking notes and asking my professors questions. One of them, Dr. Sarah Thompson, saw something in me. Hilda, she said one day, you don't just want to study public health. You want to change the system. That's rare. Don't waste it. She gave me an internship application at the city's environmental health department. I took the application home, but my mother pushed it aside to make room for Isabella's wedding planning binder. Isabella was engaged to Ethan, a young and promising neurosurgeon. The wedding was a grand affair, with over 250 guests. I was a bridesmaid in an ill-fitting dress. In the photos, I was always in the background, while Isabella and Ethan beamed in the center. After the wedding, I moved away to pursue my master's degree in public administration. I worked hard, living on a tight budget and writing a thesis on waste management in urban areas. When I graduated, I got a job as an environmental health specialist at the city's public health department. My salary was $40,000, and I had a small cubicle in a busy office building. My first year on the job was challenging. I responded to a foodborne illness outbreak at a local restaurant and worked long hours to contain it. I got an internal commendation, but my family never knew. At family gatherings, when someone asked what I did, my mother would say, Hilda works for the city. Something to do with cleaning, I think. Everyone would nod politely and change the subject. Over the years, I was promoted. I became a senior specialist, then a director, and finally the executive director of the department. My salary increased, and I was in charge of a large team and a significant budget. But my family still didn't know. They were too busy focusing on Isabella's perfect life. Then, the health crisis hit. The city was in chaos, and my department became the front-line defense. We coordinated the distribution of protective equipment, implemented sanitation protocols in public places, and worked closely with hospitals. Grandma Martha got sick during the crisis. I used all my professional connections to make sure she got the best treatment. When she recovered, she looked at me and said, Hilda, you saved my life. I told her it was the doctors, but she knew the truth. She also knew that my family still didn't understand my work. Promise me, she said, when the time comes, don't let them off easy. I promised. And that's how I found myself at that Thanksgiving dinner, finally standing up for myself and showing my family who I really was. In the weeks that followed, my mother called me several times. I didn't answer at first. She texted, saying she was sorry and that she wanted to talk. I blocked her number for a while. Work was a different story. I was focused on solving the water contamination issue. By the end of the week, we had identified the source and started the necessary repairs. Isabella reached out to me. We met for coffee. She was nervous, fidgeting with her napkin. She brought a letter from Ethan, apologizing for his assumptions. I knew you weren't just a cleaner, she said. But it was easier not to ask. I told her, you were complicit for all these years. But if you want to make it right, you need to change. We agreed to try to rebuild our relationship, but I made it clear that things had to be different. My father also sent me an email. He apologized for not seeing my worth. He said he had always felt like a failure in his own job, and he thought I was making the same mistake by choosing public service. But he realized he was wrong. I wrote back, saying I would consider giving him another chance, but I wouldn't tolerate any more disrespect. A few months later, I was promoted to the Deputy Chief of Public Health Operations. My salary increased to $135,000, and I moved into a new office with a view of the city. I still keep that $50 bill in my desk drawer. It's a reminder of where I came from and how far I've come. My family and I are still rebuilding our relationship. We have lunch once in a while, and my mother is learning to ask questions. Isabella and I text more often. My father sends me a birthday card every year with a handwritten note saying he's proud of me. But the most important relationship is the one I have with myself. I don't need my family's validation anymore. I know what I do matters, and that gives me the freedom to be myself.